Hello, welcome to Line War. Today we've got SneakusPeakus versus Schwer2. I'm not sure, so we're going to call him Schwer. And we have 2 barracks being placed down right at the beginning, 5 barracks being placed down right at the beginning. And he hasn't set his lines up. He's going to move down towards the mountains, which is towards SneakusPeakus. I'm just going to call Sneakus from now on. Who has gone for 2 barracks, 2 factories, and an airfield straight off. And they will end up meeting pretty quickly. He's got 2 groups of units going towards this section, which is exactly where Schwer is coming from. I hope I'm pronouncing his name wrong. If I'm not, feel free to let me know in the comments below. So what is he doing? I'm going to have to get rid of that in a minute. So far he's just stuck with the barracks that he wanted at the beginning, and he is going to be expanding this way. There are 2 choke points around this area, and he's able to come around this area for a 3rd way into this section. So it's not just a single choke point. There's about 4. They're going to be easily connected. You're not going to be able to block off the enemy on the ground. But Sneakus doesn't need to be blocked off because he's getting some helicopters pretty early in this game. But Schwer should have a lot of economy from the territory grabbing he's going to be able to do from all this infantry production in the area. He's going for another barracks just here. Which, to be fair, I might have put one here just to send some units this way, or a few more units this way. But at this point in the game, he's definitely going to want to try and get out through this gap here as fast as possible. Because Sneakus is already claiming the area around that choke point. I thought that was a little trade route then, it's definitely not. It's just some territory to grab. And so it's one of the shortest trade routes I've seen. But there is a trade route here for some economy later for Sneakus. Doesn't look like there's any for Schwer at this point. Anyway, so he's got a lot of units coming around this way. Some units are joining in this line a bit later on, so these guys will eventually join up with these guys as they approach the enemy, which will be good for Schwer if they get there in time. Sneakus is trying to just control the area that he has first. He's expanding up towards this area as well. He knows it's going to be important to grab that. But at this point, it is taking a while. We have some contact, so Sneakus can actually see these units right now. I don't know if he's going to respond with anything, but he should do fairly soon. There he goes. He's changed his lineup. He's going to figure out what to do now. He's sending some units straight in there. And he's going to keep these units here for now by the looks of things. Schwer can see the enemy as well, so he knows there's some units around that area. And he's going to try and push through and come out through this area as fast as possible while catching some territory. Looks like we've got a single unit just going to go in there and engage. Might be wise to try and pull him back because he's not going to last very long. On the other hand, we have 2 helicopters already built, a 3rd one being built now, so they're going to engage a bit later on. And I think Sneakus is hoping that that engagement will help him take away this infantry rush. I don't see Schwer building anything else. He's literally just going barracks all in. He's playing just like I would. So I wonder if the infantry rush can be beaten. Due to the map, it might actually be a lot easier because you've got a lot of routes to take and block off. So it'll be harder for the infantry to get in and rush this base, so they're going to have to take specific routes, and they're not going to be able to avoid the units that they're going to struggle against. Unless he switches it up, which he probably will later on. I'm sure he will. I doubt very much he's going for infantry only throughout this entire game. Over here, though, it looks like this choke point, Schwer is going to get out of there pretty quickly. At the same time, there is a large force about to get to that location too, so we're going to have a bit of engagement on both ends. These units are trying to plow straight through. They're coming out quite quickly. And Sneakus, his units is actually seeming to be a bit too thin. Spread out a bit too much, I think. He's trying to bring them back so he can regroup into this section and defend by the looks of it. That seems to be what his plan is right now. He's going to focus on movements only, so these have turned to blue so that they end up moving rather than fighting. They will shoot, as you can see, as they move, but they're going to focus more on movement than attacking. And over here we see Schwer's got his units coming through. So Sneakus is pretty much trapped in at this point. If Schwer can take over this area, Sneakus is going to be very limited to this area, maybe try and expand to that island, but I think he's going to be able to break free of this eventually. But he's basically being pincer attacked throughout his entire land. Obviously not as effective when it's such a large scale, but it does look like he's got enough units here to be quite a big threat at this point. So we've got two engagements going on at the same time. We've got these guys over here and these over here. The artillery here might change this battle in the long run, but I don't really know who's actually got the most infantry there. And there we go. We can see that Schwer's gone into something else. He's not just going for infantry only, which is definitely the best way to play that. He's getting some tanks though, but Sneakus can see that. So he knows what's going to come for him. And I think that his helicopters will easily be able to handle those tanks. So what Schwer is switching into is probably not the best of ideas right now. Not that he could know that. But these artillery are taking out these infantry in the mountains, because the infantry, although moving faster recently from the update, they still end up getting a reduction in speed through the mountains. So these artillery are doing a lot more damage than they normally would to those infantry. Up here there is no speed improvement, or reduction should I say, but the artillery is getting some free firing on that, because Schwer is sending his units literally around the artillery. He probably needs to try and keep his units into this area. I'm not sure exactly why he's just rushing them into this area. I think he's trying to create a distraction here and focus on the base that's going there. Either way, it looks like both players have lost a lot of units, but Sneakus is taking control over this mountainous area. So he's doing a very good job at holding off the enemy there. Over here, it looks like he may lose the engagement in the initial location, with the tanks rolling in and the infantry still coming in, but the artillery's done a lot of damage. I'm sure that artillery is going to get some medals at some point. However, I'm pretty sure that Sneakus is going to be able to build up his units and take on this area, and if he needs to, he'll bring in those helicopters, so I'm sure he'll be fine for a while. Over here, he's still got his same barracks and stuff. He's got a factory, and he does have his energy well. But we'll have a quick look at the eco as we're here. So Schwer, who's got a lot of infantry, and that does get you a lot of eco, has 548, whereas Sneakus has 488, so he's about 100 behind. But he's taken some pretty good trades in the battlefield, I think, mostly because of the artillery against infantry, which is usually quite good, and the mountain terrain, which is helping him. He's just trying to make sure the enemy doesn't get through this choke point and secure a foothold beyond it, which I'm sure is going to be quite difficult when the enemy can just go this way around, which is definitely one of their plans. And Schwer does have control over this location, which means these infantry units are going to be able to freely claim all of this land over here. Although it seems like he's missing this section here. I don't know if that's something he knows, he just wants to get around quick or something, but he definitely needs to try and take some of these territories too. I can hear the helicopters on the move, so Sneakus, trying to scout the enemy base, is sending in his helicopters, and he's spotted a barracks, he spotted a lot of infantry, and they're not going to do a lot of damage back to him. And if I remember correctly, Schwer doesn't have any anti-air whatsoever, especially not in this location. They're just infantry units. Those helicopters are going to get a lot of free hits in. The factories are up here, but they're still building tanks. So even now, he's still not switching into anti-air. Now his helicopters pretty much got some free hits in there. They destroyed the production. Sneakus can see what's coming in. He can see the tanks over this way. But the artillery in the forests are being able to take them out. They're spread out quite nicely, so those tanks have to go to different locations. The helicopters are going to move in next. And those tanks will not last long, even if they were going to in the first place. Over in this choke point, we have a fair amount of artillery, and they're being rushed by the infantry. Those infantry will probably get a kill on a couple, but I'm pretty sure those artillery will be able to hold their own there, and they've got some more reinforcements coming in, probably not as fast as Sneakus would like. But he's certainly going to be able to take out these infantry and hold off that group there, especially with the helicopters as support. However, Sneakus does seem to be overwhelming in multiple locations with pretty much mass units. Most of the infantry just backed up by a couple of tanks, and even now, still no SAM units. I don't see an airfield for interceptors either, so I think Schwer is just going for complete ground control. And it's going to ignore the air units and try to focus fully into the ground assault, hoping to tank the damage from the helicopters. But yeah, those artillery have hold on to this line here. They've got the units there. I think Schwer's given up trying to push there. He's just got his units in there still. But those artillery are going to push forward and try and take the territory along the way. There isn't really much to defend. They've got a free production of infantry over there, but that's pretty much it. And we got some more tanks coming in, but they keep coming in just smaller numbers, and there's nothing to take out these helicopters. I think Sneakus with these helicopters, it really needs to be addressed. You really need to counter what is killing your units. It might sound simple, and I know I don't do it when I'm doing challenges with infantry and stuff, but I really suggest if you've got helicopters attacking you, you really need to switch into the anti-air unit. I'm expecting to see an airfield with interceptors if he's not switching the other ones, but I just can't see anything. These artillery are advancing now. Schwer has put his infantry behind the barracks so that when they're produced, they move backwards, and I assume as soon as they get there, he's going to try and push forward. Have a look from his point of view. He has taken the line off. He's going to push forward now, hoping to get some distraction damage, I guess. So while these guys are shooting the structures, I think was his plan. These lot can come in and try and take out the artillery, but I think he timed that a bit off, if that was the plan. Over here we have 2 tanks, one being quite badly damaged. He's got 4 tanks in total. He's got the SAM units coming out now, which is great. Not for Sneakus, but it's great to see some counters being used. We have fortifications being built by Sneakus over there. He's bringing his helicopters back so that they're not beyond the lines. And I think Sneakus is pretty much content on defending in this location while trying to push through here and trying to take control over this location, because then he can trap the enemy into just one small section of the map. I think that's the plan he's going for. And unfortunately for Schwer, it looks like he's going to lose this location right here. He's got a lot of artillery against him there. He's trying to hide a commando in the forest, which is not actually a bad idea. I think he's going to try and sneak around this army as they come through. So he's thinking ahead, which is quite good. It looks like he's in production of only commandos right now, with the infantry trying to distract the artillery. Can Sneakus see those tanks? No, but he has deleted this fortification line. He's going to try and send his units in once again. And I'm sure those helicopters will probably follow as soon as he sees the tanks. I can't see any helicopter commands, but hey, it looks like at the same time, Schwer is going to try and rush in with his tanks and his SAM units. I don't think this is enough SAM. He should have produced a few more. But at the same time, this is a large army he's going up against. So he does still need the tank production as well. But yeah, so the helicopters are going to prioritize targeting the SAM units. But unfortunately, just one helicopter isn't enough. As the other ones come by now, having a group of 3 will probably be able to take out these SAM units. There we go. So they're going to first target the SAM unit there, and then they're going to take it out, move on to the next, and then those tanks are free game once again for those helicopters to just carry on taking out. And then these artillery units will be moving forward, supported by the helicopters. If any SAM comes out, they'll probably take it out again. Over in this location, these artillery did manage to take out all 3 of those barracks there, which not only reduces his production, it's going to leave his energy well vulnerable. However, he's switched into factories now. He's got a lot more factories being built, and he is already focused on some SAM units. which is great to see that he's learning from that and he's going to be countering the enemy. The infantry units are just coming straight through the shroud there, surprising those tanks, because the tanks just don't really have that much vision, especially when there's only 2 of them. There we go, the helicopters are just randomly flying around. They're going to land over here and hopefully take off in a bit when Sneakus decides he wants them again, but at this point the tanks aren't that much of a threat. Over here, Sneakus can see the defensive line, the fortifications are being built, but he can also spot the energy well that he may need to destroy. We can see that he's still producing some tanks, which will be fairly decent at trying to stop this attack. But I just think that Sneakus has too many artillery there. But he is trying to move his tanks in different directions, trying to come around at the sides, while these units hit through the middle, which is quite good positioning, but unfortunately the tanks are entering a bit too early. And the artillery are all going to unload on them instantly. It does give time for the fortification to take out the infantry. But unfortunately that tank gets targeted down really quickly and is not as useful as it could have been. Over in this location, the factories are left producing tanks. 1 more's just been built. But unfortunately, 1 tank will not take on this army alone. So Schwer is not in a great position right now, but he does have a lot of infantry that could come in and back this up once they finish capturing this territory. It looks like Sneakus didn't want to fully commit to that engagement there, seeing so many units, but if I was to be honest, if I was going to see all these, I would send in the artillery on their own. I haven't seen any air units, and the infantry I'd just keep back. The artillery would outrange these infantry, so you get some free damage in until Schwer is forced to decide on what to do next. But I think Sneakus likes to focus on one side of the battle at once, so as he's winning on this side, he sees the defensive line there, he's bringing his units back to defend. And is then going to fully focus on this side of the battle. So he can see, with his accumulative vision, he can see these infantry coming in from this side. And he's going to try and split his forces up into 2 groups, sending some to the left and some to the right, or up. Because Sneakus has no idea what the enemy's base looks like, and it is quite spread out. But there isn't really any structures up this way. Taking out this factory is pretty much all the damage he can do, other than eco, by capturing the territories. Over here we have a curved shaped defense. I generally prefer my curves to go the other way, sort of a concave inwards. They come in towards multiple firing lines. It would probably be better in this location if you're going to try and defend there. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is better, or the way I would do it like that? Because, you know, it's always subjective and it always matters on the environment and stuff like that. The helicopters have been brought in to the left to try and take on all of this infantry forces, which there's quite a lot of infantry there. I think Schwer can actually do quite a bit of damage with that. But the infantry are going to get distracted by the Reds' infantry, and the artillery are just going to fire over them. And again, they're moving slow over the mountain, so the artillery are going to be even more effective there. But Sneakus is confident he can hold this area and is building a barracks here. You can see some energy storage there, but hasn't used it. And I think Schwer also hasn't really used it. He's just got the building there. I don't know if he actually knows how to use it. So you'd have to click this, press the K key, the letter K, and then connect it via pipes to this structure here, because this is production and this is storage. So then you'd have a pipe going across the map. The only downside to pipes is that they show your enemy where your storage is, but that's the only way to use them, so you don't really have a choice. Unfortunately, Schwer wasn't actually able to utilize his infantry here very well, and the artillery have managed to take them all out. And the helicopters, to be fair. There is a lot of firepower there from Sneakus, so that is unfortunate for Schwer. He's got a second line coming up here. He's going to try and take out that structure and see what else is up in there. And now Schwer is a bit concerned. He can see the fortifications over here. But he's going to be sending most of his units this way. He knows that these units, if they move, you'll see them. So he can send a lot of units this way and attack there. But you've also got to remember they're still both expanding. There's a lot of territory still up for grabs. And Schwer is still doing that. So he could come back in this. At the minute, Schwer has 1,200 left in capital that he could be spending on factories or barracks or airfields. And he's got 860 per minute, whereas Sneakus has 700 per minute. So he has actually less eco than Sneakus. And there's a lot of units coming in through this direction, more than Sneakus has here. Which is a bit concerning, because he might actually be able to break through. But although he's got 5 tanks here, these helicopters probably take him out pretty quickly. He's trying to bring his helicopters back, but only 2 have taken the command. The rest are a bit too far away. Or are they going to take off now? No, I think they're still a bit too far away. It's actually a bit lack of energy as well. They're having energy issues. So, Sneakus needs a bit more energy production. I don't see where he can grab that right now, but I'm sure he's got somewhere. Not quite yet. So, Sneakus is having to deal with some units sneaking in through this side, where Schwer has managed to expand. So far he's coming in from the other side, and he might even be able to get into the back of this section if he plays his cards right. And he might be able to take out this fortification from behind. And now we have the tanks trying to chase the units going up that way. There we go. So those tanks are going to try and chase these units and catch them from behind. Sneakus is not too worried about saving them. He's going to set up defense here as well. And he's just going to hold off for a while. Sneakus is out of energy completely, so he's building a power plant here. So that's going to increase his production. They cost the same as these things, but you can place them anywhere as their advantage. But they aren't as effective. They're about half effective as the energy well. So, to be fair, I am surprised Sneakus hasn't got many units expanding in this location. I think that is something that is allowing Schwer to stay in this game. Having just a few units trying to expand through this area, you'd have seen them being able, like, coming through. And you'd have noticed what they're doing, how far they're in, and you'd get just a bit more information, and you'd have the eco. At the same point, those tanks are chasing the enemy and have managed to reach them. There's a large force here, actually, I did not spot. It looks like all the units that were in defense here are pretty much moving this way. He's got a few units in the forests trying to hide out and sneak around. And he's going to gather his units here, but send the tanks off in this direction. But even Schwer is having energy issues. So those tanks are actually being slowed down by their own movements. It looks like Sneakus has decided to give up on the fortifications here and send his units through. Another thing you could do is, instead of taking away the lines of fortifications, because they take time to build and they reduce your health, you can click on them and take away the units that are attached to it, and then all the units would take these commands instead, leaving the fortifications up for you to come back and retreat to later. The helicopters are moving in. They're going to take out a lot of infantry here without much effort either. They're not going to have any resistance to fight back. And is anything going on here? Yes, Sneakus is on a full-on assault right now. He's even got some units trying to take on the expanse going on over here. So let's have a look from Schwer's perspective. He's got the tanks over here. The units are moving in over here, so he's trying to move the units away. It looks like that's what he's doing. He's moving them in 2 different directions, so he might actually be trying to catch the army off guard in this section here from both sides. And it looks like Sneakus knew that there was infantry in the forest here, and he sent his units straight through it. Yeah, he's literally trying to go through the forest and see what's there, and he can see absolutely everything with the units that he's got. And the same again here, because he had fortifications set up here. If he had just taken the units off, the fortifications would stay, and then the units could be reattached to that later and then rejoin the fortification. And now he's sending the helicopters straight over the water there, and are going to be attacking in this section. What is Schwer doing at this point? Yeah, he's left his units off. I think he was going to try and bring both units in at this side, so that's kind of good movements there, which would have been great at catching the enemy off guard. But the pure fact that he just doesn't have enough anti-air is what is hindering his efforts so much in this game. And having so many tanks is requiring a lot of energy for him, and it's just not going his way. On the other hand, I did not see that, but he's building a lot of barracks in this section of the map, this area that Sneakus just hasn't been able to take control of yet. And Schwer has gotten into the back of Sneakus' base, and there is pretty much battles all over the map right now. And Sneakus doesn't even see the production, so he might not consider how bad the threat is over here. So that is Schwer using his eco advantage to the best of his abilities, because Sneakus has nearly 800 per minute, and Schwer has 900 per minute, and he's in the negatives, which means he's spending all of that money before he makes it. That is a lot of production that he's got. And you can see him all spread out all over the map. He's got some commandos trying to sneak through and see what's going on. Over here, he's just trying to defend as desperately as he can. On this section, he's actually kind of doing a lot of damage, but it's just the helicopters that are doing too much damage to his units to be able to make this a full-on assault. And over here, the tanks are having energy issues and they're just not really making much progress. But they are managing to kill off the units in that area. From Sneakus' side of things, we can see the tanks over here, and he is dealing with them, and I don't think he's going to struggle there. With the helicopter support in this section, I don't see that being a problem either. Over here, the artillery has formed a complete line here, and at this point, you've got so much SAM here, only against the artillery. He needs the SAM to be over here and the tanks to be over this way, which was kind of unfortunate. It's just depending on the way Sneakus moves his helicopters, because it doesn't matter where the SAM go. You kind of need SAM all over the place, just to depend from the helicopters. Because the helicopters can move much faster than SAM units. So in this section, it looks like there's just so many units coming out all over the place. They are a bit too thinly spread out. But that will give them great vision and the ability to try and sneak past, like with these commandos over here, actually managing to get through and acquire some pretty good spotting over there. But he has kind of led them into this choke point, which is going to be a high point for Sneakus to send some units through. It's definitely a place you'd want to avoid with some stealthy units. The helicopters are being brought to here to try and defend these artillery units. Up here, it looks like the artillery are being very successful, taking out anything that comes towards them. And I don't think that Schwer is going to be able to do anything about it without any air units. As far as I can tell, Sneakus also hasn't built any air units, any anti-air units. And that's partly because he just hasn't seen any. So I don't really blame him too much. These helicopters have literally landed around the enemy because they're just not bothered. Up here, it looks like all the tanks have disappeared. There's a few territories still under control of Schwer, which Sneakus probably should do a taken out because he could utilize that later. Over here, I do think the artillery are losing ground here, and the infantry will eventually break through there. However, once again, I'm going to say that the helicopters are probably going to be the issue in the long run. You need some factories building SAM units only. He definitely has a plan over there. I'm not sure if it's going out the way he planned it to, but be fair, he did manage to sneak past all those defenses and get through. And managed to get behind the enemy to build it, so I think he's doing alright. Sneakus is really trying to hold off this line, but the units are coming in drips and drabs, which is sort of slowing him down more than being effective at killing the enemy, so he's just trying to hold it off in that location. Over here, Sneakus has absolutely no vision whatsoever. He's got one SAM unit to protect this choke point here. But all of his units production in this area is going towards the defense of this location, which he may eventually succeed in defending. But I'm not sure it's going to be worth it with the amount of distraction he's had. A lot of units are going to start sneaking in through this section of the map. But I think that if Schwer focuses on this area of the map, he might actually be able to get somewhere and take over some of the base that is under Sneakus' control. I think the only downside to this is that Sneakus can pretty much see everything that's going on over there. So it's going to be hard for Schwer to get into this area and actually do some damage to the main area. Over here it looks like the artillery are going down now. There is not enough to take out any more structures here. They did manage to take out the energy, which is good for Sneakus, bad for Schwer, because he's still got... In fact, he doesn't have tanks anymore, so it's not too much of a problem. There's some infantry taking out the helicopter there, and the infantry that's there. So I think Sneakus really needs to lift off these helicopters before they end up getting taken out by infantry. I think Sneakus has forgotten about the helicopters in this area right now. Let's have a look what he's doing. So he does have quite a large battle going on all over the place. He has spotted that territory I was on about earlier that's in control of the enemy. He's taken that away now. Probably could do with his helicopters being further down. He did lift these helicopters up and they are going to be shooting the enemy now. And Sneakus has managed to get some artillery really far out there, which I assume Schwer knows about. Yep, and he's not too worried about it. He's just going to carry on with the lines that he's got. But Sneakus is going to start spotting the structures that are in this area. Unfortunately, not able to take over this area, but doing enough damage and distraction for this side of the army to probably succeed there now. But yeah, so he's got a good attack going on here. He's probably got it a bit too thin for my liking. I'd probably have that on 5 lines just to spread out the units a bit more, so that they end up arriving in kind of like a stronger force, especially when you've got artillery as your main focus. The helicopters, on the other hand, are pretty much controlling this area, taking out any units that come into contact. And Schwer doesn't have any anti-air in this location either, but is building even more barracks. But he's still trying to build up his economy. He's not forgetting to expand. He's still trying to get his units to come around all of these territories, and he's done very good at trying to do that. He still has 900 capital per minute as well. Sneakus, on the other hand, has probably been growing as a capital a bit more. Yeah, he's got 900 now. So Sneakus at this point has finally caught up to Schwer, but has continuously pushed Schwer back, even though he's been a bit behind on capital. Or income, should I say. At this point, Sneakus can see that the enemy's got quite a large force here and is going to try and focus on defense. He's probably going to bring his helicopters here so that he can bring them all in at once to help the defense over here. So we've got the commandos trying to sneak around there. From Schwer's perspective, he's got quite a few. And they're going to try and sneak back through here, and I'm not really sure what they're doing. I think they're just trying to capture territory that they once controlled, while these production structures are forced to focus on this area over here, which, as you can see, the artillery are taking out a lot of the units here before they're even being fired upon. So this is what I mean. Send in the artillery only if you need to. Keep the infantry close by. just in case they decide to rush you. And as soon as you see their fortifications come down or their units start moving forward, that's when you should send your infantry in. That's how I would want to play it, if I remember to do that when it comes to battling. And over here we've got the helicopters pretty much trying to clear up the map, but it does look like Schwer is making progress in this location. He's actually pushed back Sneakus, but the helicopters are pretty much saving him at this point. And Sneakus is always under energy threat right now. His energy has always been low. It's not actually managing to build up in time. But it might be worth trying to improve that for a while, especially if you keep producing helicopters. The artillery here are actually pretty effectively taking out every unit that's over here. So Schwer is actually taking control over this section of the map, even if the fortifications are up or not. The helicopters are going to come in and try and take these out, which they're probably going to be quite successful at because there is literally just one SAM unit here. And I think it might be out of range. I don't think it's going to do anything about that. I think it's just going to keep them there. No, the SAM unit is now in range, which is actually not bad because it's just out of range for the helicopter to target it instead. That was some free damage on the helicopter for once. Over in this section, we do have a lot of production here. He's trying to store some units while still presenting his units on the field. I think he's actually just bringing them back at this point. The helicopters are going to try and take them out. I think he's trying to build up his numbers before going on a bit of a bigger assault. But more helicopters have been brought in, so this might be a bit more difficult for Schwer to actually come back from. But he's doing a very good job at trying to stay in this game. He's managing to win in this section of the map. Sneakus giving up on the defense of this location. And he's going to bring his units back a little bit and try and retreat just a little bit further out. It looks like Sneakus is slowly losing control over much of that side of the map. And if I was to be honest, I was actually thinking that Schwer would have control over this section for a lot longer than he did. So this ended up to be a bit more interesting than I thought. And Schwer does have a group of commandos hiding over there. I don't think Sneakus can see them all. No, he can see two normal infantry, so he can't see any of the commandos there. And Sneakus is keeping up the pressure, trying to push his units through and testing the boundaries. So he knows that there are units around, and it might be wise to use the helicopters to check out what's in this forest. The helicopters are being used in this section just to try and save the defense that's going on here. These guys are pretty much just being used as a meat shield while the helicopters deal the majority of the damage there. And Sneakus is building some eco structures up here. So he's going to need to defend this location for as long as possible. Otherwise that would end up being a bit of a waste of economy. What have we got going on here? Has anything changed? He has a lot more of the land down here. Almost completely taken it. And something else Sneakus could do, I've just thought, is the island over here. I mentioned it ages ago. He still hasn't managed to claim it. And he could quite easily have done it with just two commandos from here coming out over here and a transport jet. He would have been able to take over that land quite easily. And that would have been some extra eco for him later on. So Sneakus is being pushed back in this location, but I think that's on a bit of a stalemate for now, while both players are trying to build up their defense. Schwer is trying to focus on the anti-air of his units. He's got some SAM units dotted around in all these places. Over this place, the air units are still taking or giving a lot of damage. And is that SAM unit coming this way? It looks like it. The SAM unit's just going to come around to the middle here and just stay there. It looks like there's a circle for them here, so I think the helicopters have taken out the SAM that's been positioned over in this direction. Over here, he's just hiding some units in the mountains and seeing what he can get away with in the ground. The helicopters are still trying to do as much damage as they can. And I'm not sure who's winning right now, to be honest. It looks like Schwer is actually doing a fair amount of damage to the enemy. That's Samuel who just caught the helicopter off guard there. So Schwer is actually taking out the fortifications of Sneakus right now, but Sneakus is gaining an eco advantage. Have a look. He's actually losing it a bit. So he's at 900. And Schwer is at 1,200. Schwer's taken over, actually. Where is he getting that economy from? Pretty much just this territory, I think. So Schwer has taken back the eco advantage he once had ages ago that Sneakus worked so hard to regain. And the amount of helicopters he's got just isn't enough to take out this group of units here. And there we go, we got a big push of infantry units over in this section. Let's see what Sneakus can see. And they're pretty much flying, like running straight through a firing line of many, many helicopters, which unfortunately is going to be reducing the numbers quite a lot. Because the helicopters can hit fast, as long as they don't do stupid things like that and land in the middle of the battlefield, right in front of these units that one landed. Which is a bit unfortunate, because Sneakus didn't really have much control over that. That's just where it landed. So he is going to have to take a loss on that one helicopter, but I think those helicopters are taking better trades anyway. Over here, I think the unit composition is better for Reds. I think he will manage to get through this area, but the commandos are going to do a lot of damage. There just isn't enough units for Schwer to be able to hold off the units there. So there, you can see all the infantry that are here, and they will eventually get thinned out, but he just can't reach the production yet, so I don't know if he's actually going to be able to take out Schwer in that section. Over here we've got some very confusing lines going on, crossing over in multiple directions. And Sneakus is trying to bring his units in. He's got a lot of artillery here, to be fair. And those artillery backed up by the helicopters might be enough to hold off the enemy. Unfortunately, though, Schwer does have quite a lot of artillery of his own. And I'm not quite sure how that battle's going to go. I would say Red Team's probably going to get the advantage in the long run in this section, but Sneakus doesn't have as many reinforcements coming in, whereas Schwer has pretty much focused artillery coming in this direction. Over in this direction, the commandos are moving out, and they're going to be stomping over those artillery that I was talking about a second ago that might have been able to take over that area. Down here, the infantry have thinned out quite a lot. Those helicopters have probably been taking them out quite nicely. The artillery are pushing through as best they can, but it is a bit of slow progress. However, Schwer has a few commandos trying to sneak down here and claim some extra territory. And for a while now, that's been doing really well for him. So he's doing a great job at trying to keep control over this map. And we do have a lot of infantry coming down from the main section of the base, trying to join the battlefield here, which is really close to Sneakus' base. Looking back at Sneakus, he has got this area, but his units are lined up not very effectively. They probably have gotten themselves in that position, but these units are going to come in at one point, and they're not going to be hit as hard as they could, but the artillery are going to end up taking some extra damage for that. Have a look at Schwer. Well, it's sort of... Yeah, these are the reinforcements he's got. He's got 5 artillery coming in at this point in time. He's got a lot that have built up over here, so these guys are going to spread out like across all of these lines. Down here, it looks like Sneakus is struggling to hold off the enemy. He's bringing in the helicopters, but unfortunately the SAM have made it through there. And that's what he was doing, is bringing in the infantry this way and the SAM straight down to try and help the infantry down here. And it looks like that's going to work out for him, because he's going to take out some of these helicopters, not all of them. As we said before, the SAM units do end up getting destroyed and targeted first by the helicopters. There we go, that one's on fire. Is he going to get the kill on it? I'm not sure. No, they're going to shoot the other helicopter instead. Spreading the damage out a bit too much, but again, unfortunately, Schwer doesn't have control over that. And that is just a bit random. So we got some extra productions pushing in further and further into the enemy zone. Over here, it looks like the artillery have been building up in numbers as the artillery on the Reds team have been dwindling, slowly being beaten by the artillery building up on the right-hand side. Sneakus just doesn't have the reinforcements to back up that section, and he has slowly been losing the helicopters here too, which has been his main advantage, and that's because these artillery groups have been backed up by the SAM units now. So it looks like SneakusPeakus has been overwhelmed by infantry even 15 minutes later in the game. So it's not just an early rush that you can do it. Obviously, it's not only infantry. He has been using tanks, artillery and SAM units, but he hasn't actually used air units yet, I don't think. I'm pretty sure Schwer hasn't got an airfield at all whatsoever. In fact, since losing the energy well there, he's not produced any more energy since. So down here we have a lot of infantry coming from these barracks down here, coming in through the back end, while the commandos and units there are coming in through the front. And I think he's pretty much lost all the SAM units he had here, so those helicopters are getting some free damage in once again. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. I think that Schwer has quite a good grip on this section of the map and has eventually pushed his way through. Sneakus has given up on trying to defend this area. He's pushed back over here. And he's got a lot of units trying to build fortifications here. He's got 2 helicopters in a very vulnerable position right now. And he needs to get them out of dodge really quickly. Oh, and I've just spotted he's got some barracks over here. So Schwer has been sneakily getting some units over here somehow. Maybe that was territory left over originally? I'm not really sure. Either way, there are 2 barracks there that somehow appeared. But Schwer can't see the industry that's over here, so let's have a quick look. Yeah, there's 3 industry there that Schwer just hasn't spotted yet. Back down at the main location of the base, we have infantry overwhelming absolutely everything. Whether it be commandos or general infantry, they're trying to come through here as fast as possible. The helicopters are doing their best to hold them off. But they just have so many units that their accumulative health is too much for those helicopters to handle. Over here, the artillery are... This group of artillery is surrounding that one helicopter. They're not even worried about it. I want to see Schwer's side of that. There. These units just didn't want to attack because they're on the arrow commands, to be fair. There we go. The end of match has been reached. So I'd say that Schwer was able to win that fight. And I'm not really sure how. It took him a long time to counter. But he did have a good eco advantage. It seems like it's the infantry that are going to win it for you in this newer version of the game, if you use them right anyway. Didn't think he'd be able to do it very well, but he did. And he was able to get behind the enemy and get through in this section. Anyway, there are 2 videos on screen right now. If you like my content, feel free to subscribe. And I'll see you in one of those videos. Thanks for watching.